Velthara stared at the data screen in disbelief. The numbers had to be wrong. She ran the analysis again, her scaled fingers dancing across the holographic interface with practiced precision. The results came back identical. Humans experienced fear an average of 4.7 times per day. For comparison, our own species, the Chromath, had engineered fear out of their genetics 2,000 years ago. The Selenites suppressed it through meditation. The Variks simply didn't have the brain structures to feel it at all. Every civilized species in the Galactic Concordat had eliminated fear or reduced it to near nothing. Fear was weakness. Fear got you killed, but humans? They wallowed in it. "This cannot be correct," she muttered, her translator chip converting her clicks and hisses into standard galactic. She was the Concordat's lead xenopsychologist, and in 300 years of studying alien minds, she had never seen anything like this. Her assistant, a floating sphere of crystalline intelligence named Chorus, hummed softly. "The data is verified, Doctor. Humans self-report experiencing fear regularly. They even have multiple words for different types of fear. Terror, dread, anxiety, worry, panic, horror." "Enough," Velthara interrupted. "How did such a species even survive long enough to develop space travel?" The question was rhetorical, but Chorus answered anyway. "Unknown. However, their application for Concordat membership has been approved for preliminary evaluation. You have been assigned as primary observer." Velthara's crest flattened against her skull, a sign of frustration. "Of course I have." She pulled up the human delegation's file. They had arrived at the Concordat station 3 days ago. "Ambassador Chun," the file said. "Age 52, former military, current diplomat. She found him in Observation Garden 7, standing alone near the edge of the transparent dome. Beyond the dome, the swirling colors of the Helix Nebula painted the darkness with streams of purple and gold. Ambassador Chun was a small creature by galactic standards, barely reaching Velthara's shoulder. His skin was smooth and brown, his hair black with streaks of gray. He wore a simple black suit that seemed almost primitive compared to the living garments most species favored. "Ambassador Chun," Velthara said, approaching with measured steps. "I am Dr. Velthara. I have been assigned to conduct your psychological evaluation." The human turned and smiled. The expression was unsettling. Velthara had studied enough human files to know that showing teeth could mean friendliness, but every instinct in her body read it as a threat display. "Doctor," Chun said warmly. "A pleasure. I'd been expecting you." They sat at a nearby table, and Velthara activated her recording device. "I must ask you some questions about human psychology. Please answer honestly. Your membership depends on it." "Of course," Chun said. He folded his hands on the table, completely relaxed. "The data suggests humans experience fear regularly, multiple times per day. Is this accurate?" "Absolutely," Chun replied without hesitation. "I was afraid this morning, actually. Worried I might be late for breakfast. The food here is excellent, by the way." Velthara's crest rose slightly. "You were afraid of missing a meal?" "Well, worried is probably more accurate. Fear comes in different levels." Chun leaned back in his chair. "There's the little fears, like missing breakfast or being late. Then there's bigger fears, like failing at your job or losing someone you love. And then there's the deep fears, the survival ones. Those are rare, but powerful. And you consider this normal?" Velthara asked, making notes. "Completely normal. Every human feels fear. It's part of how we're built." Chun smiled again. "It keeps us alert. Keeps us alive." Velthara struggled to understand. "But fear clouds judgment. It causes paralysis. It makes rational thought impossible." "It can," Chun admitted, "if you let it control you. But fear itself is just information. It tells you something matters. It tells you to pay attention. He paused. May I ask you something, Doctor? Valthara nodded. Your species eliminated fear entirely, correct? Yes, it was one of our greatest achievements. Then, what motivates you? Chun asked. When something dangerous happens, how do you know to react? Logic, analysis, rational assessment of threat levels. And how long does that take? Valthara hesitated. 0.7 seconds for basic threat assessment. Longer for complex scenarios. Fear is faster, Chun said quietly. Much faster. It bypasses all that analysis and just tells you to move. Then, once you're safe, you can think about it. But the Concordat has been at peace for centuries, Valthara countered. We have no need for such primitive reflexes. Chun's expression became serious. Peace is wonderful, Doctor. Humanity wants peace too. But the universe doesn't always care what we want. Valthara spent the next 2 hours asking Chun about human fear responses. She learned that humans told each other scary stories for entertainment. They created entire industries around producing fear in controlled environments. They even had holidays celebrating fear, where they dressed as monsters and tried to frighten each other. It was insane. Completely, utterly insane. Why would you deliberately frighten yourselves? She finally asked. Practice, Chun said simply. If you never feel fear, you don't learn how to handle it. So we practice in safe ways. We build up tolerance. That way, when real danger comes, we don't freeze. We act. That evening, Valthara compiled her report. She recommended caution. Humans were psychologically unstable by Concordat standards. They were emotional, unpredictable, and apparently enjoyed being frightened. However, they had developed impressive technology and seemed genuinely interested in peaceful cooperation. The Concordat Council reviewed her report within hours. Their decision surprised her. Humanity was granted provisional membership. They would be assigned to border territories near the Shroud Nebula, in the contested zones where the Vexcar swarm had been active. The Council's reasoning was clear. Either the harsh environment would force humanity to evolve beyond their primitive fear responses, or it would prove they were unsuitable for membership. When Valthara informed Ambassador Chun of the decision, she expected disappointment or protest. Instead, Chun smiled that unsettling smile again. The Shroud Nebula. I've read about it. Beautiful region. Dangerous too, with the Vexcar presence. You are not concerned? Valthara asked. Oh, I'm concerned, Chun said. Maybe even a little afraid. But that's good. Fear will keep our colonists alert. It will keep them prepared. The Vexcar have conquered 40 systems, Valthara said. They use psychological warfare. They break their victims' minds before they even attack. I know, Chun replied. His eyes met hers, and Valthara saw something in them she couldn't quite identify. Doctor, may I share something with you? A human saying? Valthara nodded. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Chun stood. We've been dealing with fear for our entire existence. We've learned some things about it. Things that might surprise you. 3 months later, Valthara found herself aboard the colony ship Prometheus, heading toward New Terra in the Shroud Nebula. The Council had asked her to continue her observations, to document how humans handled the stress of frontier colonization. The ship was full of families, scientists, engineers, farmers. They talked and laughed. Children ran through the corridors. Some people looked nervous, but none seemed paralyzed by fear. In the observation deck, Valthara watched the swirling purple clouds of the nebula grow larger. Somewhere in that beauty, the Vexcar waited. Somewhere in that darkness, humanity would face its first real test. Ambassador Chun stood beside her, his reflection ghostly in the transparent dome. Excited, Doctor? he asked. Scientifically interested, she replied. Chun chuckled. I'm excited. And a little scared. But mostly ready. Velthara looked at him. Ready for what? To show you what humans do when fear becomes a weapon. New Terra was beautiful. Velthara had to admit that much as she stood on the landing platform, watching the twin suns paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, the air was rich with oxygen, perfect for human lungs. Rolling hills stretched toward distant mountains, and vast forests covered the valleys below. The colonists emerged from the Prometheus with enthusiasm that baffled her. They should have been terrified. The Vexcar swarm controlled 3 systems within 10 light-years of this location. Every species that had tried to settle this region had either fled or been consumed, but humans were unpacking furniture. Governor Williams, Velthara said, approaching the colony's leader. Should you not be fortifying positions? Building defensive structures? Governor Williams was a broad-shouldered woman with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked up from her datapad and smiled. We are, Doctor. First priority is the shield generators and early warning systems. But people also need homes. They need to feel settled. Even though the Vexcar could arrive at any moment? Especially because they could, Williams replied. Scared people who have nothing to lose are dangerous to themselves. Scared people who have something to protect. That's different. That's focused. Over the next 6 weeks, Velthara observed the colony's development with growing confusion. The humans built homes, planted crops, and established schools for their children. But they also built something else. Underground bunkers connected by tunnels. Hidden weapon caches. Training facilities where colonists practiced combat drills twice a week. She watched a farming family, the Nakamuras, work their field in the morning, then spend the afternoon learning tactical formations. The father, Ken, noticed her watching and waved her over. Dr. Velthara, want to try? He held out a pulse rifle. I am a scientist, not a warrior, she replied. So am I, Ken said, gesturing to his crops. Xenobotanist, actually. Published 3 papers on soil adaptation. But out here, we all need to know how to fight. Does it not frighten you? Knowing the Vexcar could come? Ken was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Yeah, it scares me a lot. I think about it at night sometimes. What if they come when I'm in the field? What if my kids are at school? He looked at his hands. But I can't let that fear stop me from living. So I train. I prepare. I do what I can, and then I keep living. His wife, Yuki, joined them with their 2 children. Fear is just fear, she said. It doesn't predict the future. It just makes you ready for it. 3 months into the settlement, the first Vexcar scouts arrived. Velthara was in the colony's command center when the alarms began. Red lights flashed across every screen. The entire settlement snapped into motion with practiced efficiency. Children were moved to underground shelters. Defensive positions manned. Weapons armed. Governor Williams stood at the command console, her face calm despite the situation. 3 scout ships. Standard Vexcar pattern. They'll observe for a few hours, then broadcast their fear frequency before retreating. You knew they would come, Velthara said. We hoped they wouldn't, Williams corrected. But we prepared like they would. The scout ships were ugly things, all sharp angles and organic plating that looked like diseased chitin. They circled the colony at high altitude, sensors sweeping everything below. Then, exactly as Williams had predicted, they began broadcasting. Velthara felt it immediately. A wave of pure existential dread crashed over her mind. Her heart raced. Her breathing became rapid. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, to curl up and wait for death. She collapsed to her knees, paralyzed doubt around her. She dimly registered that the humans were affected too. She could see them grimacing, breathing hard, hands shaking. But they did not fall. They did not flee. That's it, someone muttered. That's their fear weapon? Feels like a bad anxiety attack, another voice said. I've had worse on Monday mornings. Governor Williams touched the control on her console. Music began playing through the colony's speakers. Something with a heavy beat and aggressive guitars. The humans started moving with the rhythm, using it to push through the fear. Tactical teams deploy, Williams ordered. Let's show them what they're dealing with. 6 human fighters launched from hidden hangars. They flew directly at the Vexcar scouts, not fleeing but attacking. The alien ships seemed surprised, hesitating for a crucial second before retreating. The human fighters pursued them to the edge of the system, firing warning shots. When the engagement ended, Velthara was still on the floor, her body shaking. A human medic helped her up, a young man with kind eyes. First time experiencing the fear frequency? He asked. She nodded, unable to speak. It's rough, he agreed. But you get used to it. Well, you don't get used to it exactly. You just learn that feeling afraid doesn't mean you're actually in danger. The fear is just a signal. You can acknowledge it and then ignore it. How? Velthara managed to gasp out. The medic shrugged. Practice, mostly. We trained for this. Exposed ourselves to fear stimuli in controlled environments. Built up tolerance. He smiled. Plus, humans have been scaring ourselves for entertainment for thousands of years. Horror movies, haunted houses, scary stories around campfires. We know what manufactured fear feels like. Over the following days, Velthara reviewed the recordings obsessively. The Vexcar fear frequency should have broken the colony. It had broken every other species they had used it against. But humans had felt the fear, acknowledged it, and then kept working. She found Ambassador Chun in the hydroponics bay, helping with the evening harvest. You knew, she accused. You knew they would use psychological warfare. We suspected, Chun replied, pulling ripe tomatoes from a vine. The Vexcar have been using the same tactics for centuries. It's in all the reports. Fear frequencies, psychological bombardment, terror tactics. They're very good at it. But you came anyway. We came prepared, Chun corrected. He handed her a tomato. Try it. Vine ripened. Beautiful things. Velthara took the fruit automatically. I do not understand your species. The fear should have destroyed you. Chun picked another tomato, examining it in the artificial light. Doctor, let me tell you something about human history. We spent thousands of years being prey. Lions, tigers, bears, snakes. Everything wanted to eat us. Fear kept us alive long enough to become the hunters instead of the hunted. But you evolved beyond that. Did we? Chun asked. Or did we just learn to use it better? We're still afraid. Every day. But we learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite the fear. It's feeling scared and doing it anyway. The Vexcar will return, Velthara said quietly. The scouts were only the beginning. They will bring warriors. Thousands of them. I know, Chun replied. He bit into his tomato, juice running down his chin. And we'll be ready. Because we're afraid. Because fear makes us prepare. Fear makes us train. Fear keeps us alert. That night, Velthara watched from her quarters as the colonists gathered in the central square. They had organized a movie night, projecting a film onto a large screen. She watched in disbelief as they deliberately scared themselves with a horror film, jumping at sudden sounds, gasping at frightening images, and then laughing about it afterward. Children pretended to be monsters, chasing each other through the square. Adults discussed their favorite scary moments. They were playing with fear, domesticating it, turning it into entertainment, even as real danger lurked light years away. her communicator chimed. A message from the Concordat Council. They had received the scout ship's report. The Vexcar Overmind was assembling a harvester fleet. 300 ships. They would arrive within 1 month. The council wanted to evacuate the colony immediately. Velthara brought the message to Governor Williams, expecting panic. Instead, Williams just nodded slowly. 1 month, she said. Good. That gives us time to prepare a proper welcome. You cannot be serious, Velthara said. 300 ships. This colony will be destroyed. Williams looked at her with those strange human eyes. Maybe not. But we're not running, Doctor. We're done running from things that scare us. This time, we're going to make them afraid of us. Velthara felt a chill run down her spine, and for the first time, she understood. The humans were not broken by fear because they had learned to weaponize it. They had spent millennia practicing, training, and preparing. And now they were going to teach the Vexcar something new. They were going to teach them what it felt like to be prey. The Vexcar harvester fleet arrived exactly on schedule, appearing at the edge of the system in a cloud of organic metal and chitinous armor. 300 ships, each one carrying thousands of warrior drones. The fleet had consumed 40 civilizations. New Terra would be number 41. Velthara stood in the command center, watching the displays with mounting dread. Around her, humans moved with urgent purpose, but not panic. Governor Williams coordinated defensive positions, while Ambassador Chun reviewed attack patterns on a tactical display. They will begin with the fear bombardment, Williams said calmly. Stronger than the scouts. Much stronger. It will last approximately 6 hours, escalating in intensity. By hour 4, most species are completely broken. And humans? Velthara asked, though she already suspected the answer. We'll feel it, Chun replied. Every bit of it. But we've been preparing. He turned to the communications officer. Is Dr. Okonkwo ready? Ready and waiting, sir, the officer confirmed. Who is Dr. Okonkwo? Velthara asked. Williams smiled grimly. Our secret weapon. She's a military psychologist. Spent 20 years studying fear, trauma, and psychological warfare. She's been working on something special for our visitors. The Vexcar fleet moved into orbit, blotting out the sky. Velthara's instruments detected the fear frequency beginning, but this time it was different, stronger, more complex. It felt like drowning in darkness, like being buried alive, like watching everyone you loved die in front of you. She fell again, her mind fracturing under the assault. This was not fear. This was annihilation of self. But through her haze, she saw the humans. They felt it too. Sweat poured down their faces. Hands trembled. Some cried. Some vomited. But they stayed at their posts. They breathed through it, talked each other through it, and kept working. Remember your training, Williams said over the colony-wide channel, her voice steady despite obvious strain. Name your fear. Face it, then let it go. The feeling is not reality. You are not dying. You are alive, and you are fighting. A young technician at the console beside Velthara was shaking violently, tears streaming down her face. An older woman put a hand on her shoulder. What do you feel? The older woman asked gently. I'm afraid I'm going to fail everyone. The technician sobbed. I'm afraid I'm going to die without meaning. Good. You've named it. Now breathe. You're doing your job perfectly. You matter. Now keep going. The technician nodded, wiped her eyes, and returned to her work. 6 hours. The bombardment lasted exactly 6 hours. By the end, Velthara was a huddled mass in the corner, barely conscious. The humans were exhausted, drained, some still crying. But they were functional, still working, still ready. Phase 1 complete, Chun announced. They'll be expecting us to be broken. Instead, we give them phase 2. Dr. Okonkwo, you're cleared for deployment. On the main screen, a human woman appeared. She was middle-aged with dark skin and calm eyes. Behind her, Velthara could see equipment, computers, and something that looked like a recording studio. Project Boogeyman is live, Dr. Okonkwo said. Let's show them what real nightmares look like. What happened next was something Velthara would never forget. The humans began broadcasting back at the Vex car fleet. Not tactical information. Not surrender. They sent fear itself. Dr. Okonkwo had compiled thousands of hours of human horror content. Screaming from horror movies. Images of human monsters, demons, creatures from nightmares. The sounds of things that should not exist. Visuals designed to trigger human fear responses. Refined over centuries of trying to scare themselves. But the Vex car had never experienced fear. Their hive mind was built on certainty, on absolute confidence in their superiority. They had no defenses against psychological attack because they had never needed them. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Warrior. Drones began moving erratically. Ships broke formation. The hive mind's communications channels filled with something unprecedented. Confusion, uncertainty, and the very beginning of terror. Increase intensity, Okonkwo ordered. Her team began adding layers. Human screams. The roar of predators. Sounds of things moving in darkness. Images of being hunted, of being prey, of being helpless. The Vex car fleet began to fracture. Individual ships started making independent decisions, something they had never done before. The hive mind was experiencing what every other species felt naturally. The fear of death, of pain, of the unknown. Governor Williams activated the colony's weapon systems. All fighters launch. All artillery. Target the command ships. Let's make their nightmares real. Human fighters poured from hidden hangars, moving in coordinated swarms. But they did not attack in clean, organized patterns. They moved like predators, like sharks circling prey. They painted their ships with patterns that mimicked human fears. Sharp teeth, glowing eyes, claw marks. And they added sound to their attacks. Roaring, howling. The screams of monsters from human mythology. The Vex car began to retreat. Individual ships at first, then entire formations. The hive mind was trying to reassert control, but the psychological damage was done. For the first time in their history, the Vex car knew fear, and it was destroying them from within. Velthara forced herself to stand, leaning against the wall for support. How is this possible? She whispered. Chun stood beside her, watching the battle on the displays. We've been studying fear for our entire existence, Doctor. We know how it works. We know how to create it, amplify it, and direct it. We know because we felt it ourselves, thousands of times. But they are a hive mind. They are not individuals. That makes it worse, Chan replied. An individual can process fear, can work through it. But a hive mind experiencing fear for the first time, it spreads like a virus. One ship feels uncertain, and suddenly thousands of drones share that uncertainty. There's no individual strength to fall back on. On the screen, a Vex car command ship tried to rally its forces. Dr. Okonkwo immediately targeted it with a concentrated burst of horror imagery. The ship's movements became jerky, uncoordinated. It began firing on its own fleet. The hive mind is fracturing, Williams reported. Multiple command ships are showing independent decision-making. They're experiencing what we'd call a panic attack, but on a collective scale. A message came through on an emergency channel. The Vex car overmind itself was trying to communicate. The translation was rough, the concepts alien, but the meaning was clear. Cease your attack, we will withdraw. We will leave this world. Just stop the broadcasts. Williams looked at Chun, who nodded slowly. She gave the order to cease psychological warfare. The silence that followed was profound. The Vexcar fleet hung in orbit, no longer attacking but not yet retreating. They were waiting, uncertain, afraid. Governor Williams opened a communication channel to the fleet. "This is Governor Sarah Williams of New Terra. You came here to make us afraid, to break our minds and harvest our world. But you made a mistake. You attacked a species that has been living with fear since before we could speak. We know fear. We've mastered it. And now you know it too." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Leave now, and never return to human space. If you do, we will make sure every ship in your fleet knows the terror you felt today. We will teach your entire species what it means to be afraid." The Vexcar fleet began to move, slowly at first, then with increasing speed. They fled. 300 ships, an armada that had conquered 40 systems, running from a single human colony. When the last ship vanished beyond the system's edge, the command center erupted in cheers. Humans hugged each other, cried, laughed. They had won. Valthara sank to the floor, not from fear this time, but from overwhelming disbelief. She had witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. A species had not just defended against psychological warfare. They had turned it into a weapon and used it to defeat an enemy that should have been unstoppable. Ambassador Chun knelt beside her. "Are you all right, Doctor?" "I do not know," she admitted. "My people eliminated fear because we thought it made us weak. But we kept it because it makes us strong," Chun finished. "Fear teaches us. It prepares us. It shows us what matters. And when we need to, we can share that lesson with others." Valthara looked at him with new understanding and, if she was honest, a touch of fear herself. The Concordat needs to know about this, about what humans can do. "They will," Chun said quietly, "because the Vexcar won't stop. They'll regroup, adapt, and try again. And when they do, humanity will need allies. We'll need the Concordat's support." "You will have it," Valthara promised. "After what I witnessed today, the Council will give you anything you ask for." Chun smiled, but this time it did not seem like a threat display. It seemed sad. "We don't want much, Doctor. Just a chance to live in peace. But if someone threatens that peace, if they try to make us afraid?" He looked at the displays showing the empty space where the Vexcar fleet had been. "Then we'll show them what humans do when fear becomes a weapon." The Galactic Concordat convened an emergency session 3 days after the battle. Valthara stood before the Council of Seven, the highest governing body in known space. Behind her, holographic displays showed recordings of the engagement. The council members watched in silence as human psychological warfare tore through the Vexcar fleet. "Unprecedented," murmured Councillor Jex of the Varic Collective. His crystalline form pulsed with confused colors. "The Vexcar have never retreated. Never. They experienced fear," Valthara explained. "The humans weaponized their own psychological vulnerabilities and used them against an enemy that had no defense. The Vexcar hive mind fractured under an emotion it had never felt before." Councillor Myra, a Selenite who appeared as pure light contained in a humanoid form, leaned forward. "But at what cost?" "Dr. Valthara, your own reports indicate the humans suffered greatly during the Vexcar's fear bombardment. Many were physically ill. Some experienced lasting trauma." "Yes," Valthara confirmed. "But they continued fighting. They have a concept called courage, which they define as acting despite fear, not without it. This fundamental difference in psychology is what allowed them to survive and counterattack." The chief counselor, an ancient Chromoth named Sorrel, studied the data with his 6 eyes. "We eliminated fear because it weakened us. Yet humans claim it strengthens them. Explain this paradox." Valthara had spent 3 days preparing for this question. Fear is information. It alerts an organism to danger and triggers survival responses. Most species found these responses disruptive to logical thinking and eliminated them through evolution or engineering. But humans took a different path. They kept fear and learned to manage it, train it, and ultimately control it. She pulled up additional data. Humans have spent millennia deliberately exposing themselves to fear in controlled environments. They tell horror stories. They create frightening entertainment. They even celebrate fear annually in festivals. This constant exposure has given them a tolerance that other species lack. They can feel intense fear and continue functioning. And now they have proven they can weaponize this tolerance, Counselor Jex noted. What happens when humanity decides to use these weapons against concordat species? Silence fell over the chamber. It was the question everyone had been thinking, but no one wanted to ask. Ambassador Chun stepped forward. He had been waiting in the observation area, but Sorrel gestured for him to approach. Ambassador Chun, you have heard the Council's concern. How does humanity respond? Chun bowed respectfully. With understanding, Chief Counselor. You are right to be cautious. We have developed powerful psychological weapons, but we developed them as tools of defense, not conquest. We know what fear feels like, and we do not wish to inflict it casually on others. Yet you did inflict it, Counselor Mira pointed out. The Vexcar suffered greatly. The Vexcar came to destroy us, Chun replied firmly. They tried to break our minds, to turn us into paralyzed prey before harvesting our world. We defended ourselves. That is different from aggression. Sorrel's crest rose thoughtfully. The Vexcar are regrouping. Our intelligence suggests they are studying human psychology, trying to understand what happened. They will return, and they will be prepared. I know, Chun said. That is why we are requesting full Concordat membership and military alliance. Humanity cannot face the Vexcar alone if they return in greater numbers. We need allies. We need support. And in return, we offer our expertise in psychological defense. The council members exchanged glances, communicating through their private networks. Finally, Sorrel spoke. The council requires time to deliberate. You will have our decision within one planetary rotation. Valfara found Chun in the observation gardens that evening, the same place they had first met months ago. He stood looking out at the Helix Nebula, his expression distant. You are afraid, she said, surprised by her own ability to read human expressions now. Chun smiled slightly. Terrified, actually. The council could reject us. Send us back to Earth. Leave us to face the Vexcar alone. All our preparation, all our sacrifice at New Terra could mean nothing. But you continue anyway. That is what humans do, Doctor. We feel fear, acknowledge it, and then keep moving forward. He turned to face her. I have been curious about something. How do you feel about fear now? After everything you have witnessed? Valthara considered the question carefully. I am conflicted. My species eliminated fear to become more rational, more efficient. We believed it made us superior. But watching your people, I wonder if we lost something important. You face dangers with a resilience we cannot match. You prepare for threats we would simply calculate around. You survive things that would break us. Fear is not always strength, Chun said quietly. Sometimes it does break us. Sometimes it destroys people. We lose soldiers to trauma. We lose civilians to anxiety and panic. Fear can be a weapon that wounds the wielder. But we have learned to live with that risk because the alternative is being unprepared when real danger comes. The next day, the council reconvened. Valthara stood with Chen as the decision was announced. The Concordat has reviewed all evidence and testimony, Chief Counselor Sorrel declared. We acknowledge that humanity represents a unique psychological profile unlike any species we have encountered. Your capacity to weaponize fear is both impressive and concerning. Velthara felt her heart sink. This sounded like a rejection. However, Sorrel continued, we also recognize that humanity defended itself against an existential threat using methods that, while unconventional, were fundamentally defensive. The Vexcar have terrorized the galaxy for centuries. No species has ever made them retreat. Until now, Sorrel's 6 eyes focused on Chun. The Concordat grants humanity full membership with a special designation, Apex Psychological Warfare Specialists. You will be assigned to train other species in psychological resilience and defensive tactics. Your expertise will help protect the entire Concordat. Chum bowed deeply, and Velthara saw relief wash over his features. Additionally, Counselor Mira added, we are establishing a new joint defense initiative. The Vexcar will return, likely within the year. When they do, the full might of the Concordat will stand with humanity. The session ended with formal ceremonies and diplomatic protocols. But afterward, as Chen and Velthara walked through the station's corridors, she asked him a personal question. Do you think the Vexcar can be stopped permanently? Chen was quiet for a long moment. I do not know. They are powerful, ancient, and now they are motivated by something new, revenge. But I know that humans will not face them alone anymore. And I know that fear, properly understood and properly used, can be the difference between survival and extinction. 3 months later, Velthara accepted a permanent position as humanity's liaison to the Concordat. She spent her days helping other species understand human psychology, teaching them that fear was not just weakness, but could be strength. The Vexcar did return, 9 months after their defeat at New Terra. This time they brought 600 ships and new tactics, designed to counter human psychological warfare. But they found not just humans waiting for them, but a coalition of 20 species, all trained in psychological resilience by human instructors. The battle lasted 3 days. The Vexcar retreated again, but this time with 40% of their fleet destroyed. The Concordat had learned from humanity that fear could be faced, managed, and overcome. Velthara watched the celebration from New Terra's central square, where colonists and Concordat soldiers mingled together. Someone had organized another movie night, and they were showing a human horror film. She watched species from across the galaxy jump and scream at the frightening images, then laugh together afterward. They were learning to do what humans had done for millennia, practicing fear in safe environments so they could face it in dangerous ones. Ambassador Chun found her at the edge of the crowd. Quite a sight, is not it? Extraordinary, Velthara agreed. 6 months ago, most of these species had never experienced fear. Now they are deliberately frightening themselves. And they are stronger for it, Chun said. Not because fear makes them powerful, but because understanding fear makes them resilient. They know what it feels like now. They know they can survive it. That knowledge is worth more than any weapon. Velthara looked at the celebrating crowd, then up at the stars where the Vexcar had fled. Will they come again? Probably, Chun admitted. Fear of death and extinction is driving them now, just as it once drove humanity. But each time they come, they will find us ready. They will find us afraid, yes, but also courageous. And that combination is something they still do not understand. A child ran past wearing a monster mask, chasing her friends. They screamed and laughed in equal measure. Velthara realized she was witnessing the future of the Concordat, species that had learned to face their fears, rather than eliminate them, to be strengthened by challenges rather than destroyed by them. Thank you, she said quietly to Chun. For what? For teaching us that fear is not the enemy. Ignorance of fear is the enemy. You showed us that the things we run from, can become the things that save us if we are brave enough to turn and face them. Chun smiled, and this time Velthara did not see it as threatening. She saw it as human, complex, emotional, and absolutely genuine. That, he said, is what it means to be human. We are terrifying not because we lack fear, but because we have learned to make fear itself into a weapon. Not to harm others, but to protect what we love. And now, thanks to you and the Concordat, we do not face the darkness alone anymore. Above them, the stars shone bright and clear, full of possibility and danger both. But for the first time in her long life, Velthara looked at them without the cold comfort of logic alone. She looked at them with something new, awareness of risk, acceptance of uncertainty, and the courage to explore anyway. She had learned to feel fear, and in learning that, she had learned what it meant to be truly brave.